What comes to mind when you see the interlocking LV logo? Wealth, status, or perhaps luxurious items reserved exclusively for the elite? But have you ever stopped to wonder what lies behind that glamorous facade? The truth might send shivers down your spine. Before becoming one of the most coveted names on the planet, Louis Vuitton was merely a poor, penniless 13-year-old boy who ran away from home and walked for 2 arduous years to reach Paris. He had no inheritance, no finish line in sight, just his bare feet and an unyielding will. How could an unknown wooden trunk maker possibly build a fashion empire worth hundreds of billions of dollars? The answer lies right here in this video. Let's turn back the clock to 1821, in the remote Jura mountains of eastern France. Louis Vuitton was born into a family of farmers and millwrights. His childhood was far from idyllic. His mother passed away early, and his father remarried. Like many sad fairy tales, his harsh stepmother turned young Louis's life into a living hell. In 1835, at just 13 years old, an age when most children today are still safely nurtured by their parents, Louis made the boldest decision of his life. He ran away from home. He refused to accept a destiny as an impoverished and outcast farmer. The only destination in the young boy's mind was Paris, the city of lights, where it was rumored every dream could come true. But Paris was nearly 470 kilometers from his home. With no trains, no carriages, and no money, Louis had to walk. Just imagine, a 13-year-old boy, dragging his bare feet along rugged dirt roads, traversing dense forests and unfamiliar villages. This journey wasn't a matter of weeks or months. It lasted 2 arduous years. To survive, Louis took on every odd job imaginable along the way, from herding horses and working as a laborer to toiling in dismal inns. He slept in forests, in stables, and subsisted on leftover bread. It was these bitter days and thorny nights that forged Louis's skilled hands and an unbreakable, steely resolve. He learned to work with wood, stone, and metal from the artisans he encountered, and every painful step towards Paris was a lesson in patience and meticulousness. In 1837, at 16 years old, Louis finally set foot in Paris. But Paris then was not as glamorous as depicted in paintings. It was the height of the Industrial Revolution, a city of poverty, filth, and chaos. Yet, for Louis, this was the promised land. He found work with Monsieur Marchal, a renowned trunk maker. In those days, trunks were not just for storing belongings. They were the sole protectors of aristocrats' valuables when traveling by horse-drawn carriage. And it was in this dusty workshop that the legend began. Working in Monsieur Marchal's workshop, Louis Vuitton quickly realized a harsh truth. Competition in Paris was even more brutal than the hunger he'd known back home. Hundreds of other artisans were also striving to make their mark, and if you merely did good work, you would remain a lifelong wage earner. Louis's greatest challenge at this point wasn't technical skill, but rather the entrenched mindset of an entire industry. At that time, all travel trunks featured domed or rounded lids, a design that allowed rainwater to run off when trunks were stacked on top of horse-drawn carriages. However, domed lids had a fatal flaw. They couldn't be stacked, which made transportation cumbersome, expensive, and the trunks prone to bumps and internal damage. Artisans of the era accepted this as an unavoidable reality. Louis toiled for 17 years under others, becoming the best trunk maker. He was even chosen by Empress Eugenie, wife of Emperor Napoleon, to be her personal packer and trunk maker. This was the ultimate honor, but also immense pressure, as serving royalty meant no room for error. A wrinkled dress or a broken perfume bottle could, quite literally, cost him everything. But real tragedy struck later, after he had branched out and opened his own workshop. The Franco-Prussian War erupted in 1870, and enemy forces poured into Paris. His beloved workshop in Asny-Reyes was plundered and burned to the ground. His employees scattered, and his materials turned to ash. At an age when many contemplate retirement, Louis Vuitton stood before the ashes of his career. Just imagine his feelings at that moment. Years of building from scratch, only to return to absolute zero. Despair could have swallowed anyone whole, and many would have chosen to give up or return to their hometowns to live out their remaining days. But not Louis Vuitton. Amidst the smoldering ruins of his workshop, he didn't see an end. He saw an opportunity for rebirth. He understood that simply rebuilding what he had lost would only keep him as a follower. He needed a revolution. So, what did Louis Vuitton do to turn the tide? He observed. While the world was still fumbling with rickety horse-drawn carriages, Louis saw the future in railways and steamships. He realized the era of mass travel was arriving. People would travel farther, carry more belongings, and demand greater convenience, and the old, domed trunks were simply no longer suitable for cramped train compartments or ship cabins. In 1854, he established his own brand and hung a sign, safely packing the most fragile objects, specializing in fashion packing. Then, in 1858, he delivered a steel punch to the market, the rectangular flat trunk. This was a groundbreaking invention at the time. For the first time, trunks could be neatly stacked like bricks. But that wasn't all. Louis also solved the waterproofing problem, not with a domed lid, but with material. He replaced leather, which was heavy and odorous, with a gray Trianon canvas, treated to be both waterproof and moth-proof. The result? Louis Vuitton's trunks were light, more durable, and more practical than any competitors. It became an instant sensation, with aristocrats and wealthy merchants lining up to own an LV trunk. But success brought a new problem: counterfeits. Even in the 19th century, Louis Vuitton was brazenly copied, and instead of futile lawsuits, he chose to outpace them with relentless innovation. In 1888, he created the damier pattern, a brown and beige checkerboard featuring the inscription Mark L. Vuitton de Passe L. Vuitton registered trademark, effectively turning his product itself into a certificate of authenticity. Not stopping there, to demonstrate ultimate durability and security, Louis and his son Georges created the tumbler lock with 5 spring-loaded tumblers, advertised as unpickable. They even challenged the escape artist Houdini to try and pick it, though Houdini never accepted, an act that cemented Louis Vuitton's undisputed reputation for quality. He wasn't selling a trunk. He was selling absolute peace of mind. After Louis's death in 1892, his son, Georges Vuitton, took over and elevated the brand to new heights, transforming it into the global icon we recognize today. In 1896, to honor his father and continue the fight against counterfeits, Georges created the legendary monogram pattern, intertwined flowers, stars, and the interlocking L and V initials. It wasn't just a logo, it was a legacy, a reminder of the father who walked across France to birth this empire. The pinnacle of Louis Vuitton's achievement isn't its exorbitant price tag, but its art of travel philosophy. They don't sell handbags. They sell companions for journeys. Whether it's a folding bed trunk for an explorer, a book trunk for a writer, or an instrument case for a musician, Louis Vuitton consistently meets the most demanding requirements with the motto, "If you can dream the journey, we can pack for it." The core business philosophy we learn here is an obsession with perfection, coupled with adaptability to the times. Louis Vuitton never rested on its laurels. When the automobile era arrived, they created soft bags. When airplanes emerged, they designed carry-on luggage. They seamlessly blended artisanal tradition, each bag still meticulously handmade, taking dozens of hours with the contemporary spirit, exemplified by collaborations with supreme and street artists. They uphold their brand value with an ironclad rule: never discount. You will never find an authentic LV bag in a sales-off section. If inventory is excessive, they would rather destroy it than sell it cheaply. This might sound ruthless, but it maintains Louis Vuitton's coveted position. Customers buying LV aren't just purchasing a product, they're acquiring an asset, buying the pride of owning something truly exquisite. From a small wooden workshop, LV has become the jewel in the crown of the LVMH group, leading the luxury world. It's proof that a humble starting point doesn't define who you are. Rather, it's how you refine yourself every single day that provides the answer. Friends, the story of Louis Vuitton is no Cinderella fairy tale assisted by a fairy godmother. It's a story of sweat, tears, of bare feet bleeding on the road to Paris, and of sleepless nights spent in a wooden workshop. From his journey, we draw a powerful message: Turn adversity into your greatest asset. Louis Vuitton used poverty to forge his will. He used the inconvenience of old trunks to spark innovation. And he used the devastation of war to rebuild an even stronger empire. If you ever feel like you're starting slower than others, or if you're facing setbacks, remember that 13-year-old boy. Don't look at what you lack. Look at what you can create. Your entrepreneurial journey might just be like that 470-kilometer trek to Paris. There will be times when you're exhausted, times when you want to give up, but remember, as long as you don't stop, every single step brings you closer to your own city of lights. Are you ready for your life's long walk? What's the biggest challenge you're currently facing? Share your story in the comments below, and let's discuss it together. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next inspiring stories about the giants who changed the world. See you in the next video.